Hey guys, I'm Miley, and today I wanted to share with you 7 tips that I have to get a 7 in your IB biology course. As I've stated in a couple other videos, I am an IB 2020 graduate and I took HL Bio as one of my classes. The tips I'm about to share with you are those that really helped me in my HL class, but I'm sure they could also be applicable in your SL class as well. I am mostly talking about biology, but I also used a lot of these methods in my other classes such as chemistry and math. My first tip for you is to use your textbook along with your lectures. This may seem like a given, but there are a lot of people who think they can get away without using their textbook. I used my textbook religiously. I would ask our teacher what unit we were doing next and what chapter, and then the night before or in the days leading up to our class, I would take notes on that unit and then come to class already having read my textbook. While I do enjoy a physical version of my textbook, I tended to just leave the physical at home and actually downloaded the PDF version of my textbook onto my computer so that I wouldn't have to lug my giant book all the way to school and back every day. I'm sure you could probably find the PDF version of your textbook online, but your school will most likely have access to the PDF. If you're not sure where to find it, you could probably ask your teacher and they'll most likely have a version that they can share with you. I would also suggest you ask your teacher to share with you class materials such as presentations or Google Docs, which can help you better understand things as well. Secondly, I suggest that you take your own notes. Like I said, I would take textbook notes beforehand and then bring those notes to class and use the lectures that my teacher gave to substitute any missing information that I didn't get or I didn't understand. While I was taking my textbook notes, I would underline and highlight parts that I didn't understand and write questions in the margins of my textbooks or on Post-its so that when I got to class, I knew exactly what I needed help with and I could ask my teacher. I also think that it is beneficial to cross-compare your notes with those of other students in your class or in the course at your school. In this way, you guys can make sure that you're getting all of the information and fill in the gaps that you might be missing. While I know that there are a lot of people online who share their IB biology notes or upperclassmen who even sell their notes to underclassmen, I don't really recommend this because these are notes written by someone else for themselves, and they might not necessarily help you very much. I can see why they could be beneficial in helping you make sure that you have all of your information, but I do think that it is more important for you to process and summarize and paraphrase the information that you are getting from your textbook and from your teacher than to just copy or rely on someone else's notes. When you summarize and paraphrase, you're actually actively processing the information in your mind and making it so that you can actually understand it. I would also like to say that your notes don't have to be aesthetic and pretty all the time. As long as they are legible and they make sense to you, that's all that really matters. Thirdly, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like I said, when I took my notes, I always had a Post-it with me so then I could jot down any questions that I had. And then I would come to class, and during the lectures, when our teacher would ask if we had any further questions, I would raise my hand and just ask my question and get it answered. I would also suggest asking your classmates for help because a lot of the time they can actually articulate the information in a simpler way and it can help you better understand the content as well. One thing that I did a lot was raise my hand and just say, "Sir, I just wanted to make sure that I'm getting this information correctly," and verbalize my understanding of a certain concept and have my teacher correct or confirm the information that I was processing. One thing I learned is to not be afraid to ask questions because a lot of the time, if you have a question, someone else in your class has the exact same question as well. So in this way, you're helping yourself, but you're also helping your classmates. Tip number 4, do not underestimate the power of a diagram. Biology is full of different processes that happen at a micro level, and sometimes they can be hard to visualize. So instead of trying to wrap your head around something abstract, I would suggest making little drawings for you to understand. Not to mention that there are a lot of questions in paper 2 that will ask you to actually draw out a process. Number 5, have somewhere to compile your notes. What a lot of my classmates did was that they made a master document and that they then shared with others. Then they could all input their information, check each other's notes, and help each other study. With a master doc, you can really organize it and be able to easily find information. Something that I did was that I made little posters for every unit. So on my little posters, I would have a bunch of diagrams and all the information pertaining to each diagram. I also have some classmates that made little booklets for each unit. And so in this way, they kept them organized and they could refer to them later. By doing this, you're also once again summarizing your notes and reanalyzing and reparaphrasing what you have learned. So then this just solidifies the information in your brain as well. Number 6 is probably the biggest tip that I can share with anyone studying anything, is that you should make flashcards. It might sound old school and you might be more tempted to use, say, Quizlet, but I actually preferred making physical flashcards. At first, I was kind of reluctant because it felt like a lot of work, but when I started to realize how helpful they actually were, I absolutely loved them. Once I had taken the notes from the textbook and sat through the lectures and answered all of the questions that I had on a unit, I would then take my notes and turn them into flashcards. I would have vocabulary cards and concept cards, even diagram naming cards that I made for myself personally and that I used practically every day. I would keep them in my backpack and whip them out whenever I had some free time, using them before a test or even when we didn't have a test, just keeping the information fresh. I also discovered the SmartPrep IB Biology flashcard. This is the IB Biology SL deck, and there is also an HL deck that I purchased from the SmartPrep website. These cards are really helpful because they have a title card with an overview of the main points that are in your unit. They also have test-like questions in the deck that you can use to help you review. These are really good, and I tended to use them as I got closer and closer to a test day because their questions resembled test questions, but I don't think you can get by using these alone. I still strongly believe in making your own physical flashcards. You also don't need to physically purchase these. I believe you can also get access to these cards online on their website. If your school already has access to them, I strongly suggest you use them. Hey guys, I just wanted to take a few more seconds to tell you a little bit more about SmartPrep. As I said, SmartPrep decks come in SL and HL versions, and they're all divided by unit. Each unit title card outlines the main points of the unit, and they will include vocabulary, question, and even diagram naming cards. I personally own 5 SmartPrep decks: the HL and SL Bio decks, HL and SL Chemistry decks, and the SL Math deck. While making this video, I reached out to SmartPrep and they were kind enough to give you guys a 15% off when you use my discount code MaileAnne at checkout. I would like to clarify that I am not sponsored or getting any money from SmartPrep. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had access to a resource to help you through your IB. This deal is only valid up until October 11th, so if you feel like you want to get some SmartPrep cards, head on over to their website. I'll put the link in my description and use my code MaileAnne at checkout for 15% off. Anyways, back to the video. My 7th and last tip for you is to use question banks and past paper questions. This also sounds kind of obvious, but there are some people who think they can get away without doing practice questions. You can find question banks online and past papers online. A lot of the times your teachers will have access to the question banks, so you can ask them if they can make, say, practice tests for you or give you access to the question bank itself. You can also ask upperclassmen for some of their old test papers and just answer the questions on there. I think it's really helpful to actually replicate a test setting before you take your test. So print out a few of the questions, sit there with the allocated time for paper 1 and paper 2, and just take a practice test on your own. No pressure, but make sure it's quiet and treat it as if you were actually taking a test. I find this helpful because it lets you see beforehand what kinds of questions you're going to get and get a feel for the IB questions. IB questions can be really perplexing, really complicated, so the more of them you see, the better you get at kind of deciphering the language and knowing how to answer your question. Practicing in test conditions also, for me, helped alleviate some of the test anxiety that I got, so then by the time I actually sat the test, I was relatively calm. Anyways, I have now reached the end of my list. I hope that these are helpful to you, and I really want to hear what other tips you guys have. So if you have any other tips, please leave them in the comments for anyone else looking for help. So yeah, let me know how some of these go, and I will see you all very soon. Bye bye!